Okay, call to order Township of Monroe Planning Board, meeting October 27, 2022, 6:30 PM. Please stand and salute the flag. With the Open Public Meetings Act, it is hereby announced and shall be entered into the minutes of this meeting that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the following: posted on the bulletin board of the office of the Township Clerk, posted on the bulletin boards within the municipal complex, printed in a Home News Tribune on December 30, 2021, posted on the Monroe Township website, and sent to those individuals who have requested personal.
Mr. Flory, Mr. Rothman,
Yes.
Mr. Riggs,
Yes.
Ms. Polidoro,
Here.
Ms. Brodsky,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Here.
Mr. Patel, Ms. Qureshi,
Here.
Councilman Van Zora,
Here.
Mayor Delina,
Count me in.
Chairman Gaffrey.
Yes, here. Okay,
Good luck.
Laura circulated the minutes, and they were posted on the website earlier in the week from August 25, 2022. We did not have a meeting last month. If anyone has any questions regarding the meeting minutes, if not, I'll take a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Okay, this evening there are no applications, but we are going to discuss the Township Master Plan, and we have H2M Associates here to discuss the plan and any updates to the plan. Before we begin, Mayor Delina, Councilman Van Zora, do you have anything to say?
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
First of all, as everybody knows, we're here for the master plan tonight. And we're going to have the H2M people who helped us out tremendously explain things a little bit further. As everybody knows, this was done at the mayor's direction, and we engaged the public. It was really an extensive public input and outreach, and it went on, about 18 months almost, or about. And it kind of comes together tonight. As everybody knows, the master plan, what it really does is it's a roadmap for the future, okay, for the next 10 years. This is something that we would be guided by. But everybody should also keep in mind, it's kind of like it's a living, breathing document that can and should change and be, need to be revisited and amended if necessary. So if some things we have in here may not be perfect, we could always revisit them down the road. But at least it gives us an idea where we go in the next 10 years. What's really best about our master plan, the recommendations came out of ideas, comments, suggestions directly from the residents. It wasn't something that just the planning board did, behind closed doors or in an executive session. We had thousands of residents who participated in our community workshops that we had around town, information sessions, the public survey that we had posted, literally provided over 80,000 responses and comments to help drive our amendments to the plan. So under our mayor's leadership, I feel that the township went above and beyond the statutory requirements. We're trying to create a fair, open, transparent process to amend the master plan, and that's what continues tonight. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me say a few words there.
Thank you. Mayor Delina.
Thank you for the time to allow me just to make some just general comments. Yes, Councilman Van Zora, it's been 18 months, a long 18 months, but a good 18 months, but also I think more importantly a very productive 18 months. And it's what I had hoped would happen, what I would hope would occur. Getting the public input, whether it was the surveys, the multiple town hall meetings that we had, and even last month when we had the open session for public, input and information, and then even the follow-up one after that at the library. So I'm confident that we've done what we've needed to do to make it an inclusive decision-making process, and that was very important to me. So I want to thank the residents who are here. I look forward to hearing from you as well. But it's my time to also thank all of our professionals as well as the planning board members as well to spearhead the project. So with that being said, I'm very interested in hearing from H2M and looking forward to their presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And the way we're going to proceed tonight is H2M is going to make their presentation, and then the board members and their professionals will have an opportunity to comment or make questions, and then we'll open it up to the public. Generally, our rules and regulations really limit discussion by the public to 5 minutes each, but at the discretion of the chairman, I can extend that. And we all are interested in what you have to say. I would just ask that you listen to the folks that come before you, and please don't repeat, because there are a lot of people here, and we want to move through this, but what you have to say is important. So I'll turn it over to H2M.
Just push down. There you go, Paul. Until the green light comes on.
Thank you. Oh, now it's too loud. Sorry. Yes, so thank you, both Mayor and Councilman Van Zur and Chairman as well. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all again. As a reminder, we had the initial draft hearing of the master plan at the previous planning board meeting in August, and this meeting is for the planning board to vote to adopt the 2022 master plan. After that, when we presented in August the draft master plan, we received a good amount of feedback, both at that meeting from the board members as well as the general public. We also, in the township's discretion too, to keep the open public comment period through the end of September. So we were able to receive additional comments through the end of that month. And what we've done is taken all that feedback that we received both at the meeting as well as comments that came in after, and really implemented that feedback, and what we have now is the final document. And I'll go through that in this PowerPoint presentation now. So again, just to reiterate what is a master plan. So as stated by the councilman and the mayor, it's a guiding document for multidisciplinary planning and investment in the Township of Monroe for the next 10 plus years. The elements that were prepared here really came out of the 2020 reexamination report to do a land use element, a circulation, open space, infrastructure, and utilities element, and a recycling element. And, these are just the elements chosen for this process that, again, the township is, as it chooses, may want to amend or do additional of the optional elements that can be a part of a master plan. But the essential ones are really the land use element, a goals and objectives, and a housing plan element, which provide a framework for the adoption of zoning ordinances. And what was a main driver of this entire process really was the public engagement. We, had both a subcommittee and a stakeholder group. We generated significant feedback in the surveys, as well as we held 3 community workshops, which are all well attended. If you were able to see the master plan, there in Appendix A, there's a summary of the results for the survey, and then Appendix B gives reports of each of the workshops. And again, we held a draft master plan meeting at the previous planning board meeting on August 25th, 2022, and kept that comment period through the end of September. So going into the document itself, so looking first at land use. So the land use trends, residential development, largely as a result of the statewide affordable housing mandate. There's also been significant demand for warehousing and e-commerce. A lack of commercial development was evident from the research done. A loss of rural character came up both in the research as well as in the public comment, and then looking at environmental constraints as well for future land use trends. Each element has goals to the master plan. These remained unchanged from the draft plan, really looking to achieve a balance of land use types to maintain and enhance the quality of life in the township, looking at things such as potential for industrial development in appropriate areas. Same goes for commercial development in appropriate areas, maybe looking at, encouraging of redevelopment and infill development where feasible, looking to implement policies that comprehensively address the needs of an aging population, and wanting to ensure that Monroe has sufficient strategies to minimize natural hazard risks and climate vulnerability change. And each element again has a list of recommendations as well at the end of each chapter. These remain unchanged from the previous draft, wanting for residential, looking for rezonings in certain areas, wanting to ensure that off-street parking requirements for residential uses comply with RSIS standards, and then also wanting to create an open space zone where the existing open space parcels and any future open space parcels would be a part of this open space zone. Moving on to commercial recommendations in the land use element, again, unchanged from the previous draft of wanting to develop modern definitions for modern commercial as well as light industrial as those markets continue to change over time, reviewing and adjusting off-street parking requirements as necessary, looking for potential changes to the Spotswood Englishtown Road corridor, allowing for commercial and a potential light industrial use in the MUHD RA zone, looking potentially for redevelopment designation of underutilized commercial and office spaces, and then potential for a hotel use as well. Moving on to, and this is a new requirement as a part of every land use plan in the state of New Jersey, is a climate change vulnerability assessment. So looking at ways to mitigate flood hazards along your different bodies of water that flow through the town, potential for acquisition, elevation, or flood proof of structures that are located within the flood prone areas of the township, working with the county as well as neighboring municipalities to create a regional flood control commission, and then just all this as a part of taking proactive measures really for any known or anticipated extreme weather events. This would include ensuring that all critical facilities have backup generators. Moving on to the circulation element, and I just want to let everyone know that Sam Schwartz, we really appreciate the work that they were able to do on that element. We have, again, similar to land use element, a list of goals and objectives for this chapter, wanting to improve access and safety of active transportation modes, develop off-road shared use paths, potential for on-road bicycle facilities, improvement of traffic circulation operations, improve the safe movement of freight traffic, and wanting to reduce vehicular, bicycle, and pedestrian crashes. Recommendations that would go a part of these goals and a part of this element are to adopt a complete streets policy or ordinance, a review of the 2009 Monroe Trail Network Development Plan that was done by a separate consulting firm, wanting to conduct traffic-wide traffic and circulation plan, evaluating the cumulative impact that all these different development projects that are going on as a result of the statewide affordable housing mandate, wanting to implement low-cost systemic safety improvements, and to assign resources to actively participate in the Southern Middlesex County Freight Movement Study. Moving on to the open space element, the goals again remain unchanged from the previous draft. wanting to continue the trend of open space acquisition to achieve that 50% of the township as preserved lands, encouraging a network of bicycle and pedestrian greenways along stream corridors and bicycle paths which can link residential neighborhoods with open space, community facilities, and commercial areas. Ensuring quality and accessible recreational opportunities for residents of all ages, and to preserve and enhance the rural character of certain areas of the township, particularly looking at the rural planning area in accordance with the New Jersey State Plan. So recommendations for this open space plan, again, remain unchanged from the draft, wanting to focus attention on parkland and recreational expansion in the southern half of the township. This, again, we have a matrix that shows the facilities, where they are, what potential gaps there are. This is detailed, and then we provide recommendations about where the gaps are, where they can be fulfilled. We created a criteria matrix for future open space acquisition. And then review of, as a result of that, providing parcels that are potential for acquisition as a result of that matrix. And then again, wanting to work with our partners at the county to preserve and for targeted farms as a part of the county's farmland preservation program. So looking at the future open space, and one change that was, and it was really more of a technical change, was really we included, rather than having the 8.5 by 11 maps as a part of this, for that digital PDF file, these maps were all expanded to be 24 by 36 to give greater clarity and detail. These are also printed, sent to the township, and available both in the municipal building here as well as in the public library. So the maps here detail the northern portion of the township, where potential is for future open space acquisition, as well as looking at potential trail expansions, looking at the Manalapan Brook Greenway, as well as a potential right-of-way trail along the PSE&G power line right-of-way. And then for the future open space south map, this is, again, was really a major focus of the open space element due to both our analysis as well as the reiteration that came through in public comment. It came through in the August meeting. And, because we already had a major focus of that, this remains unchanged. But, because we really took into account what we heard from the public regarding open space and the need for open space in the southern part of the township. So that is the major focus here of this open space plan and the recommendations that really came as a part of it. So moving on to the utilities element, this was one where there were, and I have a separate slide detailing where the recommendations are, or where the changes really were made. But due to the feedback that we got as a part of the draft master plan, there were changes made as a part of this utilities element. The goals have been updated to really reflect what the current status is in the township as it regards to utilities, and as well as the regulations, particularly when we look at the Water Quality Accountability Act, which is a state law that really governs utility and water utilities in the township. And recommendations, again, as a part of this update from the draft plan, the recommendations have also been updated in the utilities element, really focusing on, really because the township is and this was reiterated in the September open house, meaning that the township really is a leader in compliance with the Water Quality Accountability Act, which ensures that the township has adequate water capacity in its infrastructure to accommodate current and anticipated growth in the township. So that really is a major part of what came through in this updated utilities element. And then, as a part of that, there's also additional recommendations that remained, such as, the township considering alternative energy sources as a part of a strategy for utilities as a part of this element. Recycling element really remained untouched. There was no major comments on this element. So the goals of this element really remain the same. One, because the township does a very good job. Residents are very compliant with doing recycling. It's really a leader in the state as far as recycling rates go. But again, just wanting to continue to spread education and understanding the importance of recycling and the programs that are available to residents for recycling, wanting to increase the levels that are consistent with statewide goals and continue to exceed those, and really to the one area of improvement really with recycling rates in businesses of the township. Again, looking at the recommendations that flow from this chapter are really relate to continuing and enhance on the success of the recycling program in the township. This would involve, continually monitoring, as well as continuing to pursue grants from state recycling programs to ensure a high quality recycling rate in the township. So again, I kind of touched on them throughout this presentation, but this is really summarizing what the changes were to the draft based off the comments that we heard. Again, the major focus of the feedback that we got and the changes that did occur were in the utilities element. The goals and objectives were updated, as well as a few of the recommendations, really based off the feedback and also further discussion with the township. Again, this was the township held an open house to really address a lot of the concerns that were really presented at that August planning board meeting. And they did that on September 29th. And really this element better reflects the existing conditions and what the township is really doing to address its utility infrastructure in the township. Again, as a part of this update, the digital version of the plan now has those 24 by 36 maps rather than the 8.5 by 11. So if you're scrolling through and most of the pages are an 8.5 by 11, and all of a sudden you get a big expanded page, that was why, because we really, the comment was that they're hard to read. And so we really wanted, because, the township is it's hard to get all the detail in an 8.5 by 11. So we felt that a 24 by 36 gives a better version of what people can see. And, these are also available, the physical versions of these 24 by 36 maps were also available both in the municipal building as well as the public library. There was also an added roadway functional classification map that was changed from the previous, where it was looking countywide, and this really was more of a zoomed in map version looking just at Monroe and the very immediate surrounding area. And then we heard a lot of feedback about a shuttle service from the southern part of the township because it's such a long distance to where the recreation center is in the township, and that was acknowledged in the circulation element by acknowledging that it existed as something the township may want to look at in the future. Okay, and then so summarizing what the next steps are. So again, the planning board and the public provided feedback on that draft plan that occurred both at that meeting as well as in that time period from that meeting to the end of September. Revisions were made based off the feedback received, and then barring any major changes to the plan, the planning board intends to adopt the master plan tonight. And then once a master plan is adopted, the township can begin implementing recommendations of the master plan over the next 10 years. And as was reiterated at the beginning of this meeting, that really this is a living document. We provided a, matrix of recommendations at the end of each chapter of the element. We know that in addition to the elements that were done as a part of this master plan update, there's additional optional elements that the township may want to consider doing in the future. And, if the town so chooses, they can always do a future re-examination report prior to 10 years. If something significant changed or there just felt was a need, they could do a re-examination report anytime over the next 10 years, really. So that's all I have, and I just want to thank everyone who really participated in this master plan process, the public, subcommittee and stakeholders, as well as the entire planning board. So. Okay. I think
Do you have anybody else to present?
no, that was the end of the presentation. So
Okay. Anybody, any of the professionals? Mark, after?
I have no additional comments. It was a good presentation and look forward to hearing from everyone.
Anybody?
Yeah, I have a couple comments. And you might have addressed it when you talked about putting the larger size maps, but the maps that were in there, all the code does not match that. You've got all black. There's no black down here. So it needs to be, make sure that that's.
yes, I think part of that is the size, but it's part of also just the quirky. That's because the parcels are so tiny in that area. It makes it seem like that it's a blackened area, but really those are very tiny parcels that are very right next to each other. And I think we can try to, if you so choose, we can, try to lighten that up and thin them out so that it reflects further. I think I know, because the printed version that we had to send, because we had to print all the pages on 8.5 by 11, that's why it looks a little bit more distorted. But
My concern's just that it's amended.
yeah, it can be, the maps can be updated as a part of the final. Yes.
All right. With those, want to talk about your commercial recommendation,
Yes. Mhm.
all right, which I had questioned at the August 25th meeting,
Yes.
because it's recommending reducing setbacks and not reflecting buffers.
Mhm.
And it's done for walkability, which I can appreciate, but I think that we have to make this as something that can be inclusionary within a developed parcel, but cannot be street
Yes.
with the setbacks, because we don't want that type.
Yes, I think it remained in, because largely this was looking at, based off the public feedback that we received for, a residents' greater desire for a little bit of walkability, kind of a, potential, downtown-ish kind of center. And really we were including that and the recommendation, and we don't give a concrete recommendation about, how far the setback is, or really even, where a specific area, saying, along Spotchwood Englishtown Road, it has to be X, feet from the, because really that ultimately is going to be a decision by the township council if they want to take that up. We simply want to provide it, potential vision and ideas, because really we got a good amount of feedback from residents saying that they desired some type of version of that. So,
Okay. You have a recommendation under farmland preservation that the township do a inventory of existing farms.
Can you use the mic, please?
I was using it, but I didn't know. It says potential for farmland preservation, and it recommends a new thing that we haven't reflected, which is that all the farms are placed on an inventory, and that they're reviewed and recommended for acquisition. The way we've done it previously is, we sent a letter out to all taxed farms and invited them to a meeting periodically, usually when the county updates their recommendations and asks for input. So I would like to. Hello? Okay.
There you go.
didn't work first time, so. All right, so I'd like to make sure that that is codified.
Yes, and because I think what the intention of that really was because the county keeps that inventory, and really the recommendation is really to work with the county work with the county on essentially the process that you're talking about. They have the inventory, you have the property, you have the classifications of all the farmland assessed, and really it's really working with the county to go through, because as a part of this process we worked with the county. They had their list of different parcels they may be targeting, and really that was the process that went into that description and recommendation.
Okay.
So.
And then I just found the restroom
Yes.
inventory, there's a couple missing. Like the recreation center has all the restrooms, and we don't have them on. So if we just look at that.
Yeah, that can be updated as part of the final. Mhm.
We just be going through the members with questions? Is that, okay. All right, good point. This is a light on, does that mean it's working? Hello, hello? Good. Okay, on page 78, I like page 78 because it was recommendations of where we go in the future. One of the items, number 7 and number 8, number 7 was Disbro Hill Road. It's right now R30, expanded to R38. And number 8 was Spotswood Englishtown Road, which I live off, goes from R60 to R38. Those are just 2 areas in the town. What I've noted is that when I moved in 1975, there were under 10,000 people in Monroe. Same area, under 10,000. The last census in 2020, it was 48,600. It's now over 50,000. Since it is now quintupled, is there any other area we should be reducing or expanding the area per unit so that we have less development in the future? I don't want to see X number of years from now hitting 100,000.
Yes. Well, part of that has to do with any potential future with, and this plan doesn't get into any future, post 2025 kind of affordable housing regulations.
Right.
But those were chosen because when we looked at those areas, looked at the regulation, those lots, looked at, environmental hazards, those were the ones that really stuck out as where you can potentially do a rezoning. You're not creating nonconformities, and because of the way that the lots are in that area, is that those would be appropriate. We looked at others, it just didn't. Again, the township council may have other ideas about where they want to, but those were the ones that were identified here in the plan. And then going forward, really, it's just going to depend on what any future, because so much of your development in recent years has been as a result of the affordable housing mandates.
Yes.
So it's just difficult to forecast past
Right.
that time.
We actually have been lucky in that because I look at a similar town in size, South Brunswick, they have triple the number of affordables. However, with that said, I'd love to find some other areas where we can go from an R30 to an R60 and so forth that would allow us to slow down the growth if we could. So with that said, let me go on to another item. We talked about the state home, the state home facility. That is central within the township. At the rate that Monroe is growing, we at some point in the future may be looking at another high school, another middle school. That would be a great location for it. Now, right now, it seems the state is slowly but surely getting out of it. It's not being actively used. Is there anything we can do now to make sure a developer doesn't come along, snatch it up before the township has access to it?
Well, I think, and maybe the administrator would know better, but when we discuss this, there's already some type of, legislation at the state level about what can actually be a part of that parcel. But when we did the recommendation for an open space or a public zone, that was an intention would be to include that facility as well as a part of that. So that would be a way where, and again, this is not a zoning ordinance, but if the township council chose to include an open space or a public facilities, it can be zoned, it can be written in a way where, if there was a need for further, school facilities or another municipal facility, it can be written that way.
Okay. And also on that page, and then I'll hold off, I have some others, but I'll let other people speak. Number 5 was creating a new open space zone to cover all types of open space parcels in Monroe Township. What was the concept behind that? What's the new open space zone?
So again, similarly with the state home as an example, but just because we already know as a part of the open space plan where open space parcels are, you would create a zone, have that cover what those identified open space parcels are, and you would have, in other towns have done this as well, where, really the only permitted use is some type of, public facility, some type of park, just preserved open space, really, even though there's, if it's on the Rossi, if it's a preserved farmland, those are really what would govern it, but you can create an additional layer essentially with an open space zone.
Additional layer. Okay, thank you. That'll be my questions for now. Thank you.
Anyone else on the board? Hearing none. Do you want to continue with any?
Just something came to mind.
John,
Yeah.
microphone, John.
On the open space map, there's a parcel at the end of State Home Road and adjoining Spotswood Englishtown Road. There's an 19-acre parcel, which is not reflected as open space on the map.
Okay, is it, Kevin, no, I'm not sure which, do you know what the block
Yeah,
and lot?
when you come down State Home Road, you run into a private parcel that has a house on it. All the adjoining land there for about 19 acres, I don't know what the block and lot number is, but that is open space. You've reflected the 2 adjacent open spaces, another 19-acre parcel and a 44-acre parcel, but you missed that front piece on Spotswood Englishtown.
Okay, so yeah, if we can, after this, we can get that block and that map can be updated as a part of the final.
I'll look up the block and lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. So just to make a quick comment, Paul, based on your presentation where you talked about the open space, particularly in the south portion of Monroe, in terms of the public feedback that we got, just to clarify as well, it was specific parks and recreation that was overwhelmingly asked for in terms of the public feedback. So just to clarify, it's not just creating or looking for targeted areas for open space in the southern portion of the town, which I think this plan certainly recommends, but this plan also recommends specifically identifying areas for parks and recreation for our residents that are on the southern half. And I think that's really important, and appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anyone else on the board before we open up to the public?
One quick question. Mr.
Sure.
Mr. Stroin? Mr. Stroin? We'll find out.
Yes.
Yes, hi.
Yes.
It was on page 132. There was the mention about from MTUD, they'll put well number 25 into operation this year in November. Today's October 27th. Does that look likely?
Excellent question. The one issue that we're waiting on is a long-term delivery item on an electrical panel.
Okay.
And It was actually associated with a distribution panel within the facility, and we've gotten 60% of that order, and the projected delivery on the rest of it is within 2 weeks. So we're very optimistic that definitely by the end of November, beginning of December, we should have the facility up and running.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to open it up to the public. What I ask is that when you come up to speak, please give your name and your address. And again, please listen to what others are saying so you don't repeat. And so you're welcome to come up. Sure.
What's his name again? Bingo.
Good evening.
Roger. Roger.
My name is Roger Dreiling. I live at 1700 Perrineville Road, Monroe Township, of course. I grew up in Jamesburg.
Before we go with your testimony, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I absolutely do, so help me God.
Okay, proceed.
I think the master plan does a very good job of addressing the needs of the human population of Monroe Township, and I'll congratulate everybody that had a hand in it. I'm really here kind of as a representative for the non-human population of Monroe Township. I don't see anything in the master plan that deals with reptiles, mammals, birds, or the other residents in Monroe Township. And I think they deserve some recognition and some treatment, in favor of preserving their habitat. For example, there's a movement in the state to create passageways under roads for reptiles and small mammals. There's nothing in the master plan that deals with anything like that. You talk about preserving open space, you talk about plant pathways for humans to walk through open space, to connect open spaces for human passage by foot or by bicycle. There's nothing in the master plan about passageways for wildlife to get from one preserved area to another, and I think that's important. So that's the reason, and I did make some comments in the opening public review, and they were written on a board, probably half a dozen things. Now in all fairness, they were probably on too detailed a level for a master plan. However, I would have appreciated seeing some more general things in the master plan concerning the wildlife that exists in Monroe Township. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
We're going to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do, sir. Thank you.
Okay, please provide your name and address.
Yes, I'm Linda Bozowski. I live at 388A Orrington Lane in the Rossmore development here in Monroe Township. A lifelong, or at least up until 17 years old, grew up in the township and was educated here, and now I'm back. What I'd like to say are two things. First of all, commendations to everyone who participated in developing this plan. I read all 222 pages and I was impressed. I would like to comment as a potential member of the Board of Education here in the town that I hope that the Planning and Zoning Boards and the Township Committee will continue to work collaboratively with our Board of Education We're looking at potential 567 affordable housing units that are required to be built, which are going to add students potentially to our school system. And I think it's very important that we all keep in mind that we need to work together to be sure that we're preparing enough facilities for the kids that are going to be living in town. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
John, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do, sir.
And please provide your name and address.
John Katerba, 153 Union Valley Road, Monroe Township. Thank you and good evening. I am one of 16 stakeholders with the master plan. I'm a lifelong resident. I retired in 2018 after 32 years of service at the utility department. I made comments as I was supposed to do, strictly for the good of the town. My comments at the last meeting were not meant to hurt anybody or cause any issues. They're strictly my comments. And, my father always said, measure twice, cut once. And basically that's what I was doing. I offered most of my comments on the utility portion due to my expertise at the utility for so many years, and I've gone through multiple master plan revisions and over the years. I had to say, it seemed like most of my comments were a little dismissed at the meeting. I was a little jaded after I left, I got to be honest with you. But I want to remind some of the people what I talked about. Most of my comments and concerns at that time were pressure. I talked about Mill Lake, Alcohol, Regency area. It was the town's, I don't know if it still is, lowest pressure gradient. Capacity issues, sewer bottlenecks is what I talked about, specifically at certain pump stations, number 2, number 6. And those were resulting from the Route 33 development that's to come. Water treatment. There was no mention of water treatment. The master plan referenced that the water quality needs minimal treatment. I had commented that the water is treated at various wells for iron and radium, which are costly. I mentioned the New Jersey American water purchases that they were looking into. I see that was eliminated, thank you. That was taken out, but they were in there. And then there was the lack of continuing the, or mention of the alternate irrigation mission that when I was there, we were a part of and strived for. And there was no mention of that in the master plan or the current draft. It's still not in there. That's okay, I'm just commenting. And it was established years ago by former MTUD policies. I was pleased to see that there was a utility meeting held on September 29th at the library for everybody, planning board members included, which I attended. Mr. Stroin was gracious enough to give an awesome presentation about the utility and what they did. He spoke about fire hydrants, valves, and GPS and asset management. And to my pleasure, he talked about pressure. He talked about the need possibly to investigate the Route 522 tank, possibly raise the tank. He had mentioned that there's going to be, or he's looking forward to doing a pressure study in the near future, which gave me some, validated my comments previously in August. He also talked about capacity issues, mentioned bottlenecks at Pump Station 2, Pump Station 6, and including rehab work, because some of these stations are getting old. Again, validated some of my comments back in August that I made. The water, we talked about, Joe had said we have at least 25 years worth of water, and I was happy to hear that. But again, there's no discussion on the treatment of that water. You can have the water, but you need to make it drinkable. And radium, iron issues, filtration issues are very, very costly. And in past master plans, that was looked into and mentioned. It's not in the current plan. We talked about, or Joe talked about that this last July, they had their most high peaking month for pumping water. That was a hot summer. We all know that. But again, it gets into that comment about the alternate irrigation. The more water we have to treat, the cost is on us. And if we can get that cost down, it keeps those great water and sewer rates low. That's why I brought it up. So a lot of water is thrown on lawns, treated water that we pay to treat, and it's just thrown on the lawns. If we can cut that down with this alternate irrigation, we could save a lot of money and enjoy those low rates that we still have. Again, the meeting was very informative. My comment is the next time, if there's going to be another one, that I hope it's videotaped and so people that can't get to the meeting can see it on our cable channel. I also suggest that possibly there's a public Q&A after the presentation, which there was none. So those are my comments about the utility meeting. But I was most pleased after the meeting. I went up to talk to Joe and shake his hand, and Joe personally thanked me for pointing out all the mistakes that I had found in the master plan. And I really thank you for that, Joe. And now back to the comments on the present master plan draft that I was able to get. I've only had a couple of days to read it. It wasn't forwarded to the stakeholders, as far as I know, in an email that it was out. It was on the previous August. So I found out hearsay that it was out on the street. I know you had put it on the township website, but I don't check it every day to see if it's going to be posted. I busy life, going on. So, but page 131, number 4. Including, I would add to that comment to add, include treatment costs for for radium, iron, et cetera, if required. Maybe add a number 7 to include alternate irrigation, expansion, and exploration. And of course, have the developers pay for this, as we did when I was employed there. They would also have to pay to put these improvements in, and I didn't see any mention of that. So hopefully that's something we can add in there and explore. Page 132, water supply system. The second paragraph still says that our water needs minimal treatment, and it's required for our drinking wells. I had the pleasure of having dinner with Mike Rogers, the former executive director of the utility for 30 years, last night as a coincidence, and we reviewed the plan, and he agreed with me that radium treatment and iron treatment is not minimal in his opinion, and he is an authority in the water world. Again, if we can change our habits, and again, this is why we need to get alternate irrigation going and expand on that again. I don't know how much water we estimated was wasted in senseless irrigating this summer, but hopefully we can curtail that. You're welcome, Miriam. I'm a well-grounded person, that's why. And I'm under oath. I mean that. Same paragraph, the draft only mentions system of strategic storage tanks for the pressure. Really doesn't address the pressure in the town. Again, I think we should expand the pressure system and how it works throughout the town, mentioning the tanks as the previous master plans had. Again, it was mentioned at the utility meeting at the library, and I hope it can get back in this master plan. Page 134, sanitary sewer, and page 134. I was pleased to see that the bottleneck comments were in there. Those were brought up by myself in August, again, giving me validity on my comments. Again, this is something that needs to be done, and that bottleneck requires engineering, outlay of money, and then to recapture that from the developers as they come in. So it is costly. And, when the authority was absorbed in 2007 by the township, we did have monies put aside to make improvements, long-term improvements. And when we were absorbed, the direction changed a little bit. So I know Joe had mentioned at that library utility meeting that there were a lot of things he wasn't sure why they happened, but that had a lot to do with it. So, and other than that, page 134, sanitary sewer continued. Again, the need to look into the Route 33 corridor and make sure Pump Station 2, which is affecting Pump Station 6 and the turnaround, which needs to be mentioned. Infrastructure and utility recommendations, anything and all associated costs, including treatment, should be included in recapture costs through developers. Again, the last statement is, I'm a lifelong resident. I am a stakeholder. I accepted the responsibility to review and comment of what I thought would be beneficial for the town and its future. This is most likely the last major important master plan that Monroe will ever have as it will become a guide to the Monroe's build out. And that's where we're at. This master plan's taken us to the end. And a lot of towns struggle with that because those nice connection fees and developer fees aren't there as a lifeline anymore. And so we're basically financially going to be, left on our own to figure it out after those fees diminish over time. So this document needs to be correct in all of its chapters and not be taken lightly. It will prove long-lasting effects, not only quality of life, but financial as well, again, due to those fees disappearing. So thank you for giving me the time, and good luck with the master plan.
Sir, we're going to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, state your name and your address, please.
Pradeep Milam, 4 Jake Place, Monroe Township. So I attended the August meeting. We talked about the population numbers on the master plan. They are not updated, and the state might not give us, but like we should have some estimate whom we are targeting on our plan and whom we are serving. So for example, in school, we don't need to do anything. We need to get the people count, the demographers report, and everything. So here, we don't know what is the current population other than the 2011 population numbers, and we don't have the progress or how much population is going to be in next 5 years, 10 years, we don't have. But we are planning for 10 years master plan. I don't see much planning aspect of it. The second one, there will be like 2,000 residents are going to build on Route 33 between Applegarth and Perrinville section. So that is going to put a lot more pressure on Applegarth and Perrinville. The need of those roads should be widened into at least two lanes to 4 lanes. And that is not even like mentioned or anything in this one. It's not going to put only on those roads, and people will diverge from those roads into all over the town for various needs, to middle school, to high school, to recreation, to library, to police station, to outside the towns, neighbor towns, highways, and it's going to put a lot more. And there is no like specific plan for expanding the roads or quality of the traffic regulation or anything. And on the south side, in the last 5 years, the growth is like around 50% of the population, and only 4% of the population in the north side. And we requested for any recreational facilities on the south side of the town, either on Perrinville Road or Applegarth Road. And there is no mention of that one in the new updated master plan. And again, there is a lot of emphasis on like walk to places and bike to places. But with this much of traffic, including the truck traffic, and if we enable, like if we don't take cautions to create a bike path, a specific or a secured bike path, it is going to be disastrous. So that's all my comments.
Thank you.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Michelle Arminio, I always do. 9 Nathaniel Street. Okay, I also had the privilege of being asked to be a stakeholder. Thank you, Mayor Delina. And again, I think you did a marvelous job. This is the 3rd master plan I've experienced since I moved into Monroe in 1980. And you've done the best to, since then, to expose this to the public. However, I would like it on the record as a stakeholder and a longtime member of this community and someone who comes to a lot of these meetings, and I have seen the build out of Monroe. I would like to say, I would ask this board not to approve this master plan this evening. I think more work has to be done. What it seems to me that this master plan is just a reiteration of past master plans and just really emphasizing the going forward, again, from looking at past master plans. And what we need in this town is a refresh. I think we need to acknowledge global warming. I mean, things that are beyond the local level, but that will affect us all. We've had intense flooding over the years. We've had the build out. I mean, I don't know how we're going to go to, I mean, we keep saying 50% open space. And I believe at this point, I have to say that it's political rhetoric, because the more we build out, the less space we have in the town overall, the less open space we can have. So please stop saying 50% open space unless you can prove that there is available open space. There's hardly available space for our schools. And I know this governing body doesn't address it, but in a master plan and for the sake of the community and the children in this community, we have to work together and find space for our children, open space for our residents. And I think this master plan is too retro. It's in the past. We need the future for this town. And Mr. Katurba said it well, and I think most of the residents in this community feel that it has been overbuilt in the last 10 years. We have struggled as a community with the building out, the high density, the cluster zoning, that's not true cluster zoning, and these overlay zones. All the attempts in this master plan to make some zoning higher zoning so there's less building on it, well, that's all well and good, except in the current master plan, there's what they call an overlay zone. That's an option, but all these builders come to this community and seek relief for this overlay zone. So even if we do something for 3 acres or raise the acreage, builders come and they have an option to appeal to the township for an overlay zone based on the current master plan, and I'm sure this master plan. So what does that do? Again, it's political rhetoric. They come to the town, they ask for the overlay zone, which, by the way, is not necessarily, doesn't have to be approved by this community, but inevitably, in all of the zonings and planning boards that I've gone to, they always are granted that relief, and we have high density. And by the way, the high density of the past is why we have the affordable housing obligation now and in the future. So my question is, with this master plan, the way it is stated, that seems to me to obligate us for the future and expose us to additional affordable housing obligations. And that's why this plan is not sufficient, and we should not approve it this evening, and we should go back to the drawing board. Most of the people in this community have expressed the fact, as you have stated, that we want more open space. Well, how do you do that? All of the recommendations seem to be inconsistent with each other. It's very nice to say we want more open space, but then you're saying also we should fill in areas or we should redevelop. I mean, fortunately, Monroe, I don't think has a terribly old housing facility that we have to knock things down and redevelop. But I am concerned about how much industrial we have to put in, how much commercial. I mean, we have lost so much farmland. This community was farm. And going into the future, we're going to need farmland, and we're going to need, but we've sort of destroyed that aspect of our community. And actually, you've even pointed that out. In one of the land use trends, it says, the residential development, these are your words, the residential development has put added pressure on the services that the township provides to residents, particularly the educational facilities. That is right in this plan. There is nothing to address that. And again, the overlay zone is dangerous, the way we have used in this community. And once it's in the master plan, and I've heard it over and over again from builders, once it's in the master plan, they come to the zoning board, the planning board, and the council and say, it's in your master plan. You got to give it to us. So who benefits? Not the residents whose taxes are going up and the infrastructure is not there. The builders are benefiting. They get the profit, we get the cost, and we have to pay the taxes on it. So I would ask that we do not go through this quite yet. The capacity, and Mr. Stroin did talk about the water capacity for 25 years. And he also said, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, sir, that we may even be able to have that for 50 years. That the way the capacity is structured, that based on that. However, with all this build out, how can we ensure that? And I got to tell you, I won't be here for 50 years, but I've been here just about 40 years. And if I had to project to live and that water not be available in the next 50 years, I think that means we're doing the wrong thing in terms of planning. So, and sir, all this reading, I read the affordable housing, I read what builders have to do for land use, and we talk about not being able to have impact fees. This is all impact fees. Affordable housing, the builders have impact fees. The development, the builders have impact fees. Why can't we have impact fees for our schools? That is something wrong, again, with this master plan. And Chairman, I would just like to say, as an advocate for open public meetings, that if you discourage people from coming up and say the same thing, I think that's a breach of free speech. And if one person says something and that's all you have on the record, and you ask 5 other people not to say the same thing, what that means is you may say, oh, just one person had that concern. I think people should be able to come up and repeat a concern if it shows that it's something that the public is interested in. So I would ask you to reconsider that statement, and if people have those concerns, they should be able to voice them, because the more people who voice the same thing, the more it is important to the public. And I know I have a lot more to say, but I think I will give someone else a chance. I thank you for your time, and again, I would ask this body not to approve it at this time. I know we have to have one eventually, but again, the developers are going to benefit by this master plan as they have in the last 20 years, and the residents of Monroe will not. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
And your name and address, please.
Mike DePasquale, 45 Lower Matchaponics, the vacant land. My planner here, Mark Resman, is going to hand out some documents and make a presentation. Very familiar.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
State your full name.
Mark A. Remsa. I'm a licensed professional planner and a licensed landscape architect in the state of New Jersey. I probably should put my credentials on the record as well. I'm approaching my 43rd year in the planning field. As I said, I'm licensed to practice in New Jersey. Have a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Planning and Design, Master of City and Regional Planning, and a Master of Business Administration with a focus in finance. I've appeared before Superior Court, been accepted as a planning expert, as well as before numerous planning boards and zoning boards throughout New Jersey. Have served numerous planning boards and zoning boards in New Jersey, including this one.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm very respectful of the time that you set for 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to keep as best to it, but I have a handout for everyone.
Laura, I think you get this letter from Mark one time. Mark, we'll just pass it.
You'll pass them out? Okay, thank you very much. So what I'm actually handing out is the exhibits that I submitted on September 21st on behalf of my client. And my client has a piece of property, block 68, lot 41.29 on Lower Matchaponics Road. And what I'm going to do is take you through the exhibit. And the reason why we're here is we respectfully request that you pause for a moment with the master plan, change the land use recommendation for their property from neighborhood commercial to R30, and also recommend the zoning change from NC neighborhood commercial to R30. And so the first one, these graphics, many of these are taken from your website and your geographical information system that's available on your website. So the first one just shows you roughly where the NC zone that we're talking about is in Monroe Township, and it's in the northern part of the town. If you go to the next one, this is taken right from your GIS system. This is the zoning district that we're talking about. And you can see it kind of like a purplish, muddy purplish color. That's the NC zone we're talking about. And surrounding it, all that orange is the R30 zone, residential. And then you see a swath of blue. Well, that's the FHC flood hazard conservation zone. And apparently there's some wetlands and a little bit of floodplain in that area behind the NC zone. But it's really in connection with the R30 residential subdivision to the south. So what I did, the next sheet, it cleans up that zoning map so you can see more definitively what the NC zone looks like on your GIS system. And you can see a lot of green, a lot of trees, a lot of dwelling units in the NC zone. So the next one is an existing land use inventory done with the conventional method using conventional colors. And you can see the yellow, right? The yellow represents single family homes. The red, that's commercial. The green, that's open space. And that's really part of the open space that's associated with that R30 residential subdivision to the south. And then you'll see two white areas. One is my clients, which you can see on Lower Matchaponix Road. And then there's another one all the way up on the top at Pergola Avenue and Spotswood Gravel Hill Road. So how do we quantify these nice colors? Let's go to the next page and we quantify them. So what we do is we look at the land use, which I went out and examined in the field, double checked on the aerial photography, and then just to make sure, I looked at the tax rolls to look at the use category. And you can see there's 18 parcels of land there, all number twos, which means all residential. You see 2 that are categorized as 1, that's vacant, and then 1 4A. That's commercial. And that's the commercial that's at Lower Matchaponix and Spotswood Gravel Road. It's Garvey's. That's what that red area is. So how do we analyze this? We can do it 2 ways. We can look at what percentage of land use by the number of lots. And then also we should double check it by looking at the percentage of area that the land uses occupy. Well, let's start off with the percentage of lots. Well, almost 78% of the lots in this NC zone is residential. Two lots, or 11%, is vacant. And then the open space is 1 lot and the commercial is 1 lot, each almost 6%. So let's take a look at the percentage of area that they occupy. Well, almost 55% of the area is residential. And then the next most significant one is commercial, because Garvey's is 10 acres in size. Really only a portion of Garvey's is actually developed, but we count the whole property. So that's almost a quarter of the area. And then the open space is almost 10%. That can't be built on. And then the 2 vacant properties is another almost 11%. So the overwhelming preponderance of land use here is what? Single family homes, not commercial. in terms of the number of lots and also area. So why is that significant? If you go to the next one, I took clips from the zoning ordinance. Well, single-family homes are not permitted in the NC zone. They're permitted in residential zones, but we have basically a gross mismatch between the zoning of NC and what's actually there. So I like to cut through all the planning jargon by using a simple illustration. Imagine most property owners don't know what their property is zoned. You may, because you're experts in planning and you may know what your own zoning is, but most people don't. They just assume I have a single family home, I'm in a residential zone. Well, think of the surprise of the person who says, my mother-in-law wants to come and live with me, I want to put an addition on the house. Go to pull a building permit, can't do it. It's a pre-existing non-conforming use. I need a use variance. Another homeowner wants to put an in-ground pool. That's a permitted accessory use in a residential zone, but not in the NC zone. No, you can't do that. You got to get a use variance because you're expanding a pre-existing non-conforming use. So then the last few of pages here take on a little tour of Lower Matchaponix Road. And granted, these are just a couple of years old from Google Maps. However, Lower Matchaponix has just been repaved, and you'll see nice pavement and new striping. But if you go through these photos, coming from the west of Lower Matchaponix to the east towards Garvey's, you see the nature of this road. Not commercial, nice country lane, residential. And you continue going east, and then you see the NC zone on both sides of the road, residential. And then at the bottom of one page, you're approaching my client's property. Again, you can see the house in the distance, residential. And then you continue on toward Garvey's. There's that red barn that's on part of the property. And then on the right, you're approaching the R30 zone. No difference from what you saw in the NC zone. And as you continue through, making it all the way, it still looks like a residential area in that. So in conclusion, my client respectfully requests that you pause for a moment, correct this major mismatch in zoning with the existing land use pattern. And I can't speak for the other property owners. I can only speak for my client. However, the evidence is pretty clear as to what's happening in this NC zone of what needs to be adjusted. And so we would ask that the master plan be updated, because we've heard a lot of folks talk about this is the future next plan for the next 10 years. Certainly is, and maybe beyond. And so this is the opportunity to make a correction for a particular area of town that has a gross mismatch in zoning and existing land use. Thank you. Michael, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you. Great presentation. We've submitted several letters dating back from 2021 as this opened. And to date, we wished, I appreciate you had 80,000 inputs from 50,000 residents I heard here tonight, but multiple letters were submitted for this same request, and we haven't received any response for that. But this seems, as you're redoing the whole master plan, it's appropriate to consider this change, and I would appreciate a dialogue if there's questions or any additional follow-up. But as Mr. Remsa pointed out, every area surrounding this property is now residential, and this would conform with the greater area, and that's what should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations on your significant undertaking.
Thank you. And just to clarify, is that that there is no recommendation for this area. The area is currently zoned NC, as the Mr. Remza mentioned, and that really the master plan does not actually really take a position on this area. And I think while there are some recommendations for other rezonings, this is ultimately really before the township council. If the township council wants to look at a potential request for rezoning, I understand that we've made other recommendations. The thing is that, you know, we largely talk about in this master plan about really a balance of land uses. We've seen, you know, as has been other comments before tonight, has been about the residential development in the township and really the lack of commercial development in the township. I think what was in the master plan as it relates to just really commercial in general is just recognizing the lack of commercial and trying to create a balance. Now, you know, looking at your property in particular, you know, I think again it really is a matter of what potential either the township council or if there was submission for a use variance for that site that's all.
Excuse me, Miriam, I apologize, but the master plan is the basis for your zoning. And if you do apply for a use variance and it stays neighborhood commercial, you have to reconcile with the master plan. It's one of the proofs. And from what I've heard, this is really inappropriate. You really should be looking at fixing when you have such a gross mismatch of existing land uses. I hear you and I understand that there's a need for more commercial, but it needs to be done in the right locations. When you have over 3/4 of the properties in residential use, and to maintain that and to create a situation where anyone who wants to expand or add to their house and put them under a use variance condition is really a misjudgment of that. So master plans are an opportunity to fix that. And this whole area has grown with residential use. There hasn't been any new commercial use. And if you look at the whole area, the evidence is quite clear. And Garvey's is large enough as 10 acres that could remain as commercial. It's significant enough. But with all the surrounding properties being residential, the surrounding zone is all R30. This is the opportunity to correct that. So with all due respect, this is the time to make that change when you find this kind of evidence. So thank you again. And Miriam, thank you for your time.
I just want to add. I just want to add, I understand what has been presented, but I want to make it very clear that a master plan is a forward-thinking document, and just because things have been a certain way for a certain period of time doesn't mean that that's the direction that the town wishes to continue it to go. Ultimately, the decision on what recommendation to be made is up to the board, and then regardless of whether or not there's a recommendation made or not, implementation of said recommendation is the governing body. So at the end of the day, I can understand where Mr. Remsa, who I've known for many, many years, is coming from. But, you know, part of me is questioning, like, where have you been? I mean, this process has been going on for 18 months. And here we are on the night that we're at the end of the road, and all of a sudden these things are coming up. But secondly, just because things have developed over time in a certain direction doesn't mean that's the direction that the township wishes this section of town to be moving forward. So, you know, you're under no obligation to implement any recommendation, but I would leave it to the board. And just because a certain section has developed a certain way over time doesn't mean that's the way we want it to develop in the future. So, something to consider.
I'd just like to correct.
It has to be on record.
Okay, sorry.
I really don't think it's appropriate to have it continued back and forth. I sat here very respectfully and listened to everybody. I have, you know, respectfully, I don't agree with your position. So I think we're just going to agree to disagree. They've heard your position, they've heard my position, but I don't want to go back and forth.
That's fine.
Because
Here's our letter from
we have-
2021 that was submitted.
We have a lot of people here that are interested in participating in the process, and we should move it forward.
For the record.
Okay, anyone else wish to be heard?
Yeah.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Ganesh Prasada Masla. Address is 283 Morning Glory Drive. So the last time I spoke from the updating the master plan, I think I'm happy that like there are some of the things which I'm implemented, especially on page 113, where the township has heard that like we need facilities on the southern part of the town, and I see the type of facilities which are listed there, which is good. I play a lot of pickleball. I mean, I get started with it, so maybe you can add pickleball there. It'll be helpful for other residents also when you have these facilities. The other thing I want to talk about is last time when I spoke about I think there are other residents who are have stressed that we need community center. We have for seniors, we have senior center. For the northern side of town, we have community center, but for the southern side, we need a community center. So we have this 10-year master plan, right? So for a 10-year master plan, I think the township at least should have that included in the plan. I strongly urge, because the way we have grown in the southern side of the town, we need that at least added there. I know it's going to be a long-term thing, but I think it's important. The other thing was like, even the last time when people were saying that like, we have been growing only residentially, but we don't, as a town, right, we don't have anything which is like a small downtown or something, which is okay, but we are just going and building residential, but the town has to do a lot to get maybe some commercial establishments, which will bring in revenue, and also that way we are growing commercially and not residentially, which keeps more stress on the school system. So I don't know if that was added into the plan, but that will definitely help. The other thing I want to talk about is so I regularly go to this community garden. I'm on the southern side of the town, so I think in the last 10 years we have a community garden which was built near Wawa and the Apple Car, like the Quick Check, near the Gateway community, and I see that like there's a lot of interest for the community garden, but then at this moment, when anybody wants to go to the community garden, it's like a 2-year waiting period. So I think we should have increase that, maybe have more lots for residents to have.
Thank
you. The other thing, just looking at my notes here, sorry. Yeah, I'm happy that like the driving range which we have, like we had the Station Road, we have the place where it was for the school, and the township has included that to have more facilities. Like we want to build some recreational facilities there. So I think that is, I'm happy that that is included in the plan. And the last thing I want to talk about is for the recycling center, right? I think the hours which we have at this moment, it closed like on a weekday, it closed like 2:45. So I think we should have a little bit of extension, like decent hours for residents to go and do the recycling. I was just looking at nearby towns like South Brunswick, and they have like I think they have 9 to 5 or something. So even if like not 5 o'clock, but even if like 4 o'clock, 8 to 4, like I think we are like 7 to 3, 2:45. So if it is like extended to like 4 p.m. On a weekday, and then maybe on a Saturday, maybe like around maybe 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, it will be helpful.
Thank you.
What we're doing here, this master plan is not like a manual for municipal services. It's a general planning guide. So I don't have an issue with anything that you said, but that's not something that I would make a recommendation to be included, like hours of operation of your recycling center. That's an internal municipal decision. It would not be appropriate. Like, we've reported what is existing, but this master plan is not making recommendations on hours of operation, staffing, those types of things. That's internal to the town.
But I can ask okay. Guide, okay.
For this, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I would recommend that you go to the council meeting and make those recommendations to the governing body, because that's an internal operational issue. It's not something that we would make
Okay.
recommendations.
Okay. But so whatever I have spoken at, whatever points I have, what are something which you can include, or maybe something which was not included, but I mean, like for the community center, like people have stressed. I think before there are people. I think Prakash was here last time. He was not here today, but yeah.
I totally understand. Recommend evaluating the potential for additional community centers. That's a master plan recommendation. Looking for a location.
But I don't think it is included. I mean, sorry to interrupt you, but it's not included.
I understand that, but that's what I'm saying. Like, of the things you discussed, that's something that would be appropriate. But all these operational issues that you've discussed, that's more something that you should be presenting to the governing body for operational changes within the municipal government.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Sorry. Can I just add something to what Jennifer had mentioned?
Yes.
And I think it's important. I know you had made a comment about a particular community facility on the southern side, and our planners can correct me if I'm wrong, but the plan recommends that the township explore recreation facilities in all different sectors of the township, particularly in the southern sector. So based on that recommendation, a township could implement something, down the road. So the master plan doesn't necessarily, have to spell out exactly what that facility would look like, but then it would be incumbent upon the township to figure out how the best way to implement that recommendation.
Yeah, it's not like a capital improvement plan. It's general recommendations from which the governing body can pick and choose which recommendations it wants to implement over the course of the 10-year period that the life of the document, and decide how exactly implementation wants to be handled.
Got it. Okay.
So that's kind of what this is more, and I'm not trying to discourage you from providing feedback, but I just wanted to be clear. I just think that there's a global misunderstanding of what this document actually is.
Okay.
So I think this is not a document that we're going to take and then say, okay, it says recycling needs
No,
to be
I
expanded.
I get it. I mean, I might have included some peripheral items which I want to comment on. Maybe this is not the correct forum, but at least I want to just bring it up. And sorry about that if it's
No, it's fine, because the mayor's here and others are here, so they're hearing your concerns. So it's not going on deaf ears. It's just not something that I would recommend specifically incorporating.
Yeah, but
into the
there's
document.
only like few things, right? I mean, community center is okay, but then like I've been saying downtown or something. Monroe is all just like there's nothing here. Okay, so I mean, over and over we are telling that. I don't know what is included in the plan, but like having a downtown or like having where I see more commercial stuff coming here, I don't see that happening. I've been here like 6 years, and I don't see anything happening till now. And I don't see if it's going to happen in another 10 years if it's not included in the plan. That's
So
what my
I would
concern.
say is I would suggest really going through the plan, because it's a 200 something page document that has a number of recommendations from which the governing body, if it so chooses, will implement zoning. This is not zoning. This is implementing nothing. This is making recommendations to the governing body. So I understand what you're saying, but again, you're going to have competing interests in areas that the township wants to stay commercial. There are going to be people that want it to be more residential, people that feel that there's too much residential, not enough industrial. It's always a balancing act. So that's why there's a number of recommendations included in the document that the governing body, over the course of the 10-year period, the document is typically a 10-year document, especially something of this magnitude. And over the course of the next several years, the governing body is going to look into, high priority, middle priority, low priority implementation, and they're going to implement those recommendations that they see fit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, name and address, please.
Yeah, Michael Oleski, 50 Mayberry Avenue here in Monroe. I hadn't planned to speak today, but what wasn't clear to me before the meeting, I guess, this was a public hearing, but also apparently I an opportunity to approve the master plan. And when I realized that just a little while ago, I was wondering now, why in the world is that the case? Yeah, if it's actually being somewhat introduced, and I realize this is not the first time that people have had a chance to look at it, but if this is another opportunity to collect comments, you've gotten some pretty important comments from people here in town and also the public, and there's some pretty significant comments. Yes, maybe from one or two people here. Those one or two people you're listening to right now, they represent a lot of people in our town. And there's no question in my mind, you've got to actually take the time to sift through those comments and maybe incorporate some, all, maybe none, but not certainly rush to approve the master plan tonight. And I think the other comment I'd like to make, in all honesty, common sense tells me this master plan is our master plan, not H2M's master plan, correct? And if there's certain things that the planning board would like to see based on some of the comments, I hope, those comments go in the master plan and are not rejected by the consultant that they employed. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. In the back.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, name and address.
My name is Chrissy Skirby, 21 Preakness Drive. I stand here before you tonight as the Monroe Township Board of Education president, and I'd like to just raise some concerns with the plan as it is written currently and ask that you give some consideration and maybe, as some of the previous speakers have said, pause with this plan and go back and look at it. Because what it does is it's a 10-year plan, and at the Board of with the Board of Education, we are right now facing increased enrollment, and we're at a point right now where we are looking to go out for a referendum in April to add additions on 3 schools because of the overcrowding. We've already had 2 referendums that have failed. The community did not want to put up new schools, and we're seeing added pressure on our buildings. The Board of Education is not allowed to go out more than 5 years in their planning, and having a 10-year master plan here that is going to allow builders to come in and encourage a lot of residential building is really going to make a huge impact on enrollment in our schools that we cannot even go out 10 years to plan for. So I would really ask this board to take a look back at it and look at the impact that the building is going to have on our school district, because we are at capacity right now. And as I said, we've had 2 failed referendums. We are planning to go out in April for another referendum, and we're hoping that that passes, because we're really at a breaking point. We have trailers on at the middle school. We do not want to see putting more trailers on the rest of our schools, but that's what it's going to turn into. So we really hope and ask for your consideration in going back and looking at this plan and the impact that this plan will have on our school district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Brian Fabiano, 19 Patricia Place. I wasn't going to make a comment, but I'll make a comment after that comment. So first of all, the work that you've done in 18 months is obviously very clear in the depth of the plan that you have here. So I appreciate that. And I think what carried through here is that you involved the public, and that's very important, right? Because across the street at the school board, it's quite opposite, that the public, is doesn't want to be involved, or the board oftentimes doesn't want to have the public involved. But when we look at the master plan and we look out 5-10 years, there's no surprise that building will take place. And that is a reason why we need new schools. And I think to go out for a referendum in April for a patch job of putting on an addition here, a little bit of addition here, a little bit of addition here, contradicts what this plan shows us, that the town will grow, that there will be meaningful growth. that I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I think that this plan gives us a better idea of where it's going to take place. But to come up and say that we're going to have enrollment, overcrowding is going to grow, but then to go out and ask taxpayers for a patch job referendum in April, I think is quite reckless. So I just wanted to put that on the record because this is very clear that, you know, we're going to be growing as a town, and you know, as this plan has been thought out over 18 months, I think across the street from a referendum perspective, it should really, you know, maybe take some clues to how you plan things. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the public portion? Second? Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Put it to discussion.
Yeah, you can get further discussion if the board wants to be heard, not if you heard.
Okay, now that we've heard the public portion, does anyone on the board wish to be heard? I'm sorry. Now that we've closed the public portion, we've heard what they had to say. Is there anybody on the board who wishes to be heard?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, well, first of all, thank you again, everyone, for coming tonight. It's been a long 18 months. We've tried to get everything that we can, and just hearing everyone speak tonight, and you know, a lot of people with passion. I can't thank you enough. It shows how much the residents of our town, you know, really care. So we thank you. On behalf of the Master Plan Subcommittee, I do want to again thank our consultants from H2M and their partners for putting this tremendous effort to get this all together and coming and explaining things as best they can, given their professional analysis, synthesizing all of the public input that we had over all this period of time, and putting together what we call the feasible recommendations for the future. There's things we can control, there's things we can't control. We'd love to say there'll be no future growth and you don't have to worry, but we have to be realistic about what we have, and we have to deal with it in a sensible, rational way. And I think the master plan, at least, it makes an attempt to address that as best we can. You look at some of the key features in the master plan, it tries to balance the appropriate development along with conservation, preservation, right? The open space stuff. It talks, we target several hundreds of acres of additional open space. And no, it's not just political rhetoric, it's what we're trying to obviously do, if at all possible. It plans at least several new walking trails, bike trails, new recreational opportunities. You don't always spell out in here and say, well, this will be at this location, this will be here and there, but the plan is to try to allow for that stuff to exist. Talks about traffic studies to address things as there might be traffic issues down the road. And it identifies certain farmland parcels for preservation to help at least try and restore, or I should say preserve some of the rural character of Monroe, okay? I think personally we should use the recommendations in the plan. It's an idea to spur for new initiatives, as we said before. It's a living, breathing document, and it's an attempt to try to improve the lives of our residents. And as chairman of the master plan subcommittee, I'm going to strongly recommend to the board that they adopt the amendments tonight. There were certain comments tonight which were well taken and well spoken. I don't know where it really changes things in the master plan, though. So I would strongly recommend the board consider the approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment?
Okay, yes, all right. I also, and I will say to you specifically, Terry, you have guided a very excellent effort here. Clearly, 18 months was very well spent on the whole thing. I listened to what was said tonight, and two things stood out. And I'm sure there'll be more when it gets to the council for them to make changes. The two that struck me, Mr. Katurba talking about the treatment of the water to make it potable, I thought was a good point. That additional language should be added, especially if we've had it in previous master plans. The other comment, life changes. And what was made sense in 1980 for the area that Mr. Remsa spoke about, that was neighborhood commercial, has now grown in where it's literally the hole in the donut, where everything else is residential, and you've got one spot that's neighborhood commercial. I would suggest we make that little change to the master plan and add that in as well. So with those two items, basically making the water potable and making it more uniform as residential, I would move this master plan.
Yeah. First, I'll second the motion. I thought he said I'll move it.
Did I not make a motion?
That's what I do next, was I'm gonna bring, is there a motion to
Yeah,
bring this?
he made a motion, and I seconded it.
I'm sorry.
Is there a motion to bring the master plan to vote?
Yes, there is, with those two additions.
Mr. Chair, those are absolutely, if the board is favorable to those two items being included pursuant to tonight's meeting, that's something that could be done, the adoption take place with those two conditions, and we would implement those conditions being as they're being done in the public. That's something that absolutely we can do in the document.
Okay, so the motion then is to bring the master plan to vote with those two inclusions?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I second.
Could I be heard, Mr. Chairman? I think what Mr. Rothman said makes sense. Mr. Remsa presented a very strong argument in that particular area. I don't think there's really any problems with that, at least from my perspective. So I would still be in favor of that, subject to the two items that he mentioned.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Sorry, I just a point of clarification from Mr. Rothman's point about the potable water. I'm just not sure exactly what we're adding into the master plan on that point.
It's incorporating the recommendations that were in prior master plans, talking about the testing of the water and the treatment of the water. We can certainly incorporate a recommendation to that nature. It will be in the recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I'd like a comment from Mr. Stroin, whether that's feasible.
It's on top, Joe.
You guys on now?
Yeah.
It's really a little bit confusing to me as it relates to providing potable water to a township of 50,000 residents. That's a daunting responsibility. We provide potable water to every single resident with a product that's ingested, that's governed by the Safe Drinking Water Act and more federal and state regulations than you can even count. So to say that we need to provide potable water in a master plan document is just absolutely, to me, inconsistent with what that master plan document is, because that's a right of every single resident in this township, and that's the primary responsibility of the public utility that the township owns and runs. So again, I think that it's, again, a little bit difficult to go ahead and say that you have to provide something that you have been providing for as long as the public utility has been in operation, and you're constantly changing and reflecting the rules and regulations as dictated by the regulatory agencies on both a federal and state level. And again, the fact that we have, there's a charge about minimum treatment is absolutely absurd, because the treatment that exists for both iron and radium is treated with process units that are straightforward, and that work flawlessly. And the only cost that comes into play is when you have to do maintenance to those particular units. It's not something that adds additional cost because all you're doing is running it through an ion exchange unit or a filter on a day-to-day basis. So, and we will continue to do that for all of our water treatment plants, continue to upgrade them, continue to make sure that the infrastructure and the assets meet the highest standards from a quality and, quite frankly, the lowest cost standards as well. And as it says in the master plan document, every single one of the improvements that we can improve upon and have a developer reimburse us for are going to be done, because every single new development has a developer's agreement which clearly outlines the cost to be borne by the developer and the responsibilities of the respective township things. So we hold every developer accountable to go ahead and pay for any infrastructure that we have to add as a result of their developments, whether you want to call them impact fees or anything, because in the end, the clause that we use, if not but for your development, we would not have to build this. So we go ahead and make sure that that is in place and approved by the council and the developer for each and every new development, whether it's a 5-house subdivision or a 1,000-house subdivision that goes in as a result of, as we've talked about before, 98% of the housing through 2025 is due to the affordable housing settlement, which the township did an excellent job on. So again, I have a little bit of a cloudy area in my mind as to what exactly we're going to add. If somebody wants to say that we're going to put in exactly what was in past master plans, that doesn't really go back to the theory and the comment that was made that, oh, we're going back, we're not looking forward. No, quite frankly, I want to look forward. I want to make sure that the regulations that are coming in now and going forward in the future are held to. But again, I don't have any problem at all with a little bit of wordsmithing if it makes people feel more comfortable. But I can assure everybody in the public tonight that we provide potable water on a day in and day out basis without any issues.
I think we can come up with a general recommendation that talks about continuing to provide
Exactly. I have no
adequate
problem with that.
infrastructure to the residents and businesses of the community. Something general of that nature, which would encompass, what you just described moving forward. I don't think it needs to get into any kind of level of specificity into the weeds. I think something general would address that issue.
I agree. I have no problem with that.
Mr. Chairman, I am fine with that recommendation.
Okay, so just so I understand the motion then, it's to accept the master plan subject to the 2 additions.
Yes.
Okay. And it's been moved and seconded, so we're ready to vote.
And it's for the adoption of the master plan as amended this evening.
Mr. Rothman,
Yes.
Mr. Riggs.
Yes, but with the comment, I'd like to congratulate the mayor for his concept of bringing this frequently for public review. I've been in town for 50 years, and I've been on most of the master plan committees.
John, you're talking nice about me, so make sure everyone hears it on the microphone.
All right.
Is that working?
Yeah, no, we got to shut off. Yeah. But I've been involved in every master plan since 1972. And we have done public meetings, but we've never taken it to the public. And I just think it's a standard that we should maintain going forward. So I will vote yes.
Ms. Polidoro,
Yes.
Ms. Brodsky,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Qureshi,
Yes.
Councilman Van Zura,
Yes.
Mayor Delina,
Resounding yes.
Chairman Gaffrey.
Yes. So the master plan's approved, subject to the 2 additions.
I will prepare a resolution incorporating the 2 changes and get it back to the board secretary for signature.
Good.
Okay, yeah, we're still in session. Okay, just moving on the agenda, under memorializations, there are none this evening. Please, we're still on the record. Okay, next on the agenda is the public portion. Is there any members of the public that want to speak on any issue other than the master plan? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the public portion? Second? All in favor? Okay, are there any discussion items this evening?
Oh, one item. When is our next meeting? Because we normally combine November and December,
November 30th. It's a Wednesday.
and we're not having any in December then, right? So that'll be the last for the year. Thank you.
Thank you. No correspondence. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second? All in favor? Meeting's closed.